We aren't just passive observers, we are architects of our own experience. The brain functions as a generative model, locked in a dark skull, constantly hallucinating reality to minimize surprise. By applying the math of variational free energy, our nervous system performs active inference, balancing internal beliefs against external sensory data. This neurocomputational protocol allows us to install high-precision priors that don't just interpret the world, but actually compel the body to act and reorganize external reality. Positive thinking often fails because of a biological mechanism called posterior collapse. When an aspirational internal belief, your prior, meets high-precision sensory data, like an empty bank account, the brain calculates a massive prediction error. Without enough synaptic gain to suppress this reality, your internal model is simply overwritten. The result is faith fatigue, a total system reset where your brain abandons the vision to match the harsh truth of your current environment. Imagine your brain as being trapped in total darkness, locked inside the black box of your skull. It never sees the world directly. Instead, it interprets raw sensory data to construct an internal generative model based on statistical probability. This is the free energy principle, the idea that our perception is essentially a controlled hallucination. We don't just experience reality, we predict it. As Carl Friston notes, our expectations are the primary content of everything we perceive. When the brain detects a prediction error, a gap between belief and reality, it has two ways to resolve the tension. Path A is perceptual inference, where we update our internal model to match incoming sensory data. Essentially, we change our minds to fit the world. Path B is active inference, where we act upon the world to change sensory inputs until they match our internal model. Here, the brain automatically triggers motor reflexes to resolve the mathematical contradiction, literally changing the world to fit the mind. Imagine the brain has a volume knob for reality. We call this precision weighting, a measure of a signal's reliability. By adjusting synaptic gain, the brain amplifies high-confidence data and filters out the noise. This mechanism is so powerful that by assigning infinite precision to a desired outcome, we can effectively silence contradictory sensory evidence. Ultimately, the brain's core objective is to explain away whichever signal carries the highest precision. Belief is fundamentally a neurochemical tug-of-war. Acetylcholine, the molecule of doubt, anchors us to bottom-up sensory precision, validating the harsh evidence of our current reality. Conversely, dopamine, the molecule of faith, drives top-down prior precision. It biases the brain toward internal goals, treating an imagined future as a survival-critical fact. Your mental state is ultimately defined by which side carries more weight, the evidence you see, or the vision you choose to follow. To move a limb, the brain must perform a calculated act of blinding, known as sensory attenuation. By withdrawing precision from incoming sensory data, we effectively numb the nerves reporting that a limb is currently still. Without this temporary numbing, the overwhelming evidence of our current state would actually cancel out the command to move. Essentially, to manifest a new physical reality, the brain must first learn to ignore the old one. Think of the vagus nerve as a master volume knob for biological static. When vagal tone is low and cortisol is high, our internal systems are flooded with sensory noise that obscures our intent. However, by increasing vagal tone, we suppress that noise floor entirely. This creates a blank canvas, a state of signal dominance where clear, top-down intentions can drive the system with absolute precision. The precision weighting algorithm is a somatic protocol designed to systematically install high-precision priors. It begins with noise suppression, utilizing vagal braking to dampen sensory gain. Next, we move to prior installation, using generative modeling to construct a counterfactual reality. Finally, dopaminergic locking encodes this state with infinite precision. Our ultimate goal is to force a state of active inference, where internal imagination effectively overrides external sensory reality. Step 1 is vagal braking. Our objective here is noise suppression, lowering bottom-up sensory gain to create a blank canvas. Through respiratory vagal stimulation, specifically long exhalation breathing, we engage the parasympathetic brake. This suppresses somatic error signals and tells the brain that incoming sensory data is unimportant. By zeroing out this sensory gain, we effectively clear the system of background noise. Moving into step 2, we focus on prior installation through generative modeling. Our objective is to construct a high-precision, counterfactual prior using the law of assumption. Because the brain functions as a predictive engine, we can simulate a desired end state to force the system to infer its antecedent causes. To be effective, this simulation must be fully multimodal, integrating visual, auditory, and proprioceptive inputs, allowing the inner experience to rival and eventually override open-eye reality.
Step 3 utilizes dopaminergic locking to achieve precision encoding. The goal is to assign infinite precision to your visualization through a technique known as acute stressor integration. By introducing a physiological stressor like cold exposure or breath retention, you trigger a massive neurochemical spike. This tags the prior, effectively tricking your brain into classifying an imaginary state as a survival-critical fact, locking it into your long-term memory.
The Reticular Activating System is your brain's ultimate gatekeeper. While you're bombarded by millions of bits of sensory noise, the RAS filters for intent, surfacing only the most salient information. By establishing a high-precision new prior, you program your brain to automatically notice affordances, specific opportunities that others miss. This creates a state of automation, where your reflex arcs take over and your subconscious works relentlessly to close the gap between your current reality and your intended outcome. Manifestation isn't about attracting a timeline. It's about predicting one with such ferocious precision that your biology is forced to build it. This is reality architecture. By lowering acetylcholine to ignore current constraints and raising dopamine to lock onto a future state, you trigger the process of active inference. Through this cognitive stack, you don't just dream of a different world. Your biology literally constructs it. What if magic and neuroscience are simply two different languages describing the same internal processes? This mage's vocabulary bridges that gap, mapping ancient mystical concepts onto the hard mechanics of the brain. For instance, we can view faith as a high-precision top-down prior, or manifestation as the biological process of active inference. By recontextualizing these esoteric terms, we can better understand how our cognitive architecture actually constructs the reality we inhabit.